there's an element of corruption around everyone who isn't, what would you say, walking hand in hand with God in the Garden of Eden. Like,
right.
Look, there's a mythological trope that's very useful in understanding this. I presume that most of the people watching and listening have watched The Lion King. The Lion King has a very, very solid narrative structure. It's a very smart movie, like many of the Disney movies. And people criticize me because I'm so interested in Disney movies, but I'm interested in anything that many, 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 many people watch for a long time because, well, what's going on there? Why is that so attractive? And often a movie's attractive because it gets the story right and the characters right, whatever that means. Well, The Lion King was a very, very successful animated movie, one of the most successful movies of all time.
Can I just,
yes.
For those who can't remember, everything the light touches is our kingdom.
Right.
Yeah,
just
well,
to be clear,
so what that means, I can tell you exactly what that means. That's a brilliant line. And that's also, and notice I used the word brilliant, and brilliant is associated with the idea of the light. Okay, so now, when the light touches something and you see it, then you establish a relationship with the thing that you see, because now you start to understand it. And the more lit up something is, the more you can understand it and explore it. And so when you shine a light into dark crevices, then let's say, then you start to see what's in the dark crevices. And if you go around your apartment building, let's say, and you pay attention to every nook and cranny, it starts to become yours in a very fundamental way. And so you could say, well, light is equivalent to consciousness. That's a good way of thinking about it. Now, why? Well, we're very visual creatures, human beings. Our brains are organized on vision. Most animals are organized on smell, by the way, but not us. We're organized on vision. A huge part of our cortical activity is devoted to sight. And so we think of sight as enlightenment, light. We think of it as illumination, right? When we bring something into the light, we improve it. And so we associate the day with consciousness and illumination and enlightenment. And so if you attend to something by shining a light on it, then it becomes yours. And so your kingdom is actually everything that the light of your consciousness is shone on. And all that's encapsulated in that statement. And that's why it's stuck in your imagination. Yeah, you remember he's up with his son on a mountain, right, on a cliff. And so now think about that. That means he can see a long way. And then he sees this circle of the world and the light shining on it. And he says, everything the light shines on is our kingdom. And then that also implies that, and he says that next, that outside the light, there's another kingdom. And that's the kingdom of darkness. And that's the place that hasn't been explored. And if you remember in the movie, that's where the fascists are and the hyenas. And the hyenas are predatory. And so when Simba goes out past the domain of the light, he enters the unknown and he enters the underworld, the demonic underworld. And that's Scar. Now back to Scar. Okay, so Simba has Mustafa as his father. And Mustafa's the positive aspect of the patriarchy. And he's wise and he's tough. He's got a set face. He's no pushover. But he has an evil brother, and that's Scar. And Scar has been scarred. And that's why he's resentful, right? He's a victim. And he's a victim because his brother gets all the attention, like Cain in relationship to Abel. And he's a victim because for some reason we don't quite understand.
He's smaller.
He's smaller, but he's intellectual too, right? So he's got the Luciferian pride and intellect. And Jeremy Irons, who's that character, played that extremely well with that kind of unctuous voice that was
kind of like a snaky sound,
droning.
Well, and also contemptuous and presumptuous and narcissistic. He did a lovely job of that. And so now you might say, well, why does the king have an evil uncle or an evil brother? Well, the answer is, this is the mythological answer, is that, well, the king always has an evil brother, always. And the reason for that is if the king is the emblem of the state, or even of the stable state of being, because you can think about it psychologically or sociologically, he always has a counterpart, and the counterpart is the proclivity of that state to be overtaken by willful blindness, so failure to shine a light on things, right, to turn your head away when you know you shouldn't, and also by this corrupt will to resentful power. And that's chronic. Now, the Marxist would say, and do in some real sense, there's nothing but Scar. There's nothing but the evil uncle. It's like, that's a hell of a worldview. I can tell you in some real sense, it's akin on the Christian front to making the statement that the true ruler of reality is the satanic spirit. It's the same idea, and that's a hell of a claim, man, to literally speaking. And so, but it is the case that almost every institution and almost every person has a touch of the evil uncle as part of their structure. You know, there's no doubt that
Prince Andrew.
Well,
it does kind of take us back there. When you're
well, but everyone. So imagine that to some degree you're not as good an advocate for yourself as you might be.
I don't need to imagine that.
Well, okay, no, so you know that.
Yeah,
okay, so then imagine there's part of your character that's sort of set against you.
Yeah.
And it would be set against you because, well, you might doubt whether life has any fundamental meaning, and you might be annoyed and irritated because you've been hurt and betrayed in various ways, and your development might have been stunted because you hit obstacles and you didn't explore them enough, and so your way was barred, and so there's a part of your character that is set against you, and you have to contend with that part and hopefully overcome it or integrate it, which is a better way of thinking about it. And then that's the same for your relationship with your wife, and then that's the same for your relationship with your kids, and it just scales all the way up. And then you can say, well, look, you're corrupt. And the truth of the matter is, well, you are to some degree, but the to some degree is actually the crucial issue here.